And that's something that can cause your chick to die early on in the incubation process. So finally the egg box came in for this breeding pen I'm building. I got the bigger version of this already that I've been using in our Justin Rhodes style chickshaw. So the biggest thing that I like about this nest box is it has the rear rollout. A lot of them are the front rollout, so you still have to go inside the coop, where this one can be rear or front, and it switches over super easy. My wife and kids feel safer collecting eggs when they can just do it from the outside. We had some family over last night, and the kids helped me build this. They were a huge help. It wasn't stressful at all. Even though the two moms warned me it would be, nothing went wrong. The kids were amazing help, didn't have to worry about anything. We didn't lose any nuts or bolts. Oh, okay, so maybe I'm being a little sarcastic, but honestly, if they want to help, I want them to help. Yes, you got to watch them closely, but to me, it's something that I was always super interested in when I was a kid, so I don't want to deter any other kids from helping, even though it would have been way easier and faster to do after the kids went to bed. This nest box is about $250 delivered. So why in the world would you want to spend $250 for a nest box? And my wife wants to know the same thing. Well, if you're just trying to collect your eggs to eat, it might not be necessary. You can just change your bedding out regularly and try to close the nest box off in the afternoon after they're done using them. I mean, that's the biggest issue, is if they start roosting in the nest box at night, then your eggs are kind of nasty and gross. So the last thing that's done to that egg when a hen lays it is this coating is put on the outside called the bloom. That bloom protects the egg from getting any sort of bacteria or any other bad things inside the shell. Because your shell is actually porous. It actually has pores in it that allow air to get into it and moisture and other things that the chick would need in order to grow and hatch. But after the egg is laid, that bloom actually takes up to 6 hours to dry. In that 6-hour window, if there's any manure, bacteria, or anything like that in your nest box, that egg is actually soaking that up. And that's something that can cause your chick to die early on in the incubation process. So in the case of the egg soaking up bacteria because the bloom didn't dry soon enough, that's something there's nothing you can do about except make sure your nest box is super clean. And the best way to do that is these roll-out nest boxes. There's very little contact on that egg when it's laid because it just hits on the points of this plastic pad that's in here. Then the egg rolls out onto this 1-inch mesh, which also has very little contact on it. Now, as far as getting any manure on the shell, there are things you can do. Some people that hatch eggs like to wash them and then spray them with a 10% bleach solution. And then after that, you also have to buy a product that you can spray back on the shell that puts that bloom back on it. From what I've read, it does increase your hatch rate quite a bit because it takes all the bacteria that's on the shell off and puts a new artificial bloom on the shell. And I would like to stay away from that if at all possible. I like to keep it as natural as possible. I can see where if you run into a pinch, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Depending on how soon you wash it, that bacteria might get inside the shell before you wash it, and whether you're helping it a whole lot or not, I don't know. But I do know the people who do that have good success with it. I'm just not to the point where I want to spray something artificial on my eggs before I hatch them. But that's just me. And I might come to a point where I see that it's necessary for me to do it. I'm trying to avoid that at all costs. Now I got my nest box mounted in the back, and you can clearly see that I centered it on the bottom, and these trusses I made are not centered at all, which bothers me to no end. But this tubing is not as easy to bend as you think it is. For the past 10 years, I've been watching a good friend of mine, an electrician. I mean, all sorts of angles and straights and this and that, and you just watch it and it's like, well, that's a piece of cake. It's not. He just has been doing it his whole life. So the next time I build one of these, Josh, you're coming over, man. You're bending these trusses for me. I've seen some of these chicken tractors where they actually bend it to look like a barn roof. And I thought, yeah, maybe I could do that on the second one. And now after bending these, there's no way I could do that. But Josh can, and Josh is going to. So now I just gotta finish putting the wire on the back here and wait for my tarp to come, which will cover the top and down on the sides. Finish stapling up and tightening up a few more things. She's ready to go. I'm excited to get some of my hens in here. We're gonna put about a dozen hens in here. So we're gonna make 3 to 5 of these so we can have individual pens, and that's what's gonna help us do our spiral mating system. But I would just want you guys to keep in mind, if you're new to hatching eggs, the cleanliness of the egg is most important. You don't have to go out and buy a $250 roll-out nest box, but you need to change the bedding in your nest box, and you need to make sure that your hens are not roosting in there. It makes your life a whole lot easier to have a good quality nest box, and make sure your bedding's good and clean. Make sure you're not just picking up some nasty stuff from the back of the barn and putting it in your nest box.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Is that a great idea?